In today's video, we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series. Today, we look at the 9th-ranked team from the regular season and the Stanley Cup finalists, the Edmonton Oilers. They had one heck of a up-and-down season, ending mostly on a major positive high, falling just short of the Stanley Cup. But they have a lot of questions to answer this offseason. Will we see a change in leadership at the GM position? All kinds of holes in the roster, big extensions looming. We'll discuss what we expect to see happen coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're jumping back to our offseason plan series and we're looking at the Edmonton Oilers, who are the 9th-ranked team from the regular season and the Stanley Cup finalists in this year's Stanley Cup Playoffs. They fell just short in Game 7 of winning the 2024 Stanley Cup. So first what we're going to do is we're going to recap the 23-24 season, take a look at their team and individual stats, look at the changes they made throughout the year. Then we're going to examine their cap situation, expiring contracts, big looming extensions, big questions facing this franchise this offseason. So let's first recap last year. The Oilers finished with 104 points, got into the top 3 of the Pacific Division after a disastrous start, which saw, of course, head coach Jay Woodcroft and assistant coach Dave Manson both let go early on in the season. They had a record of 49, 27, and 6. Phenomenal turnaround after the coaching change. Chris Knobloch came in, calm demeanor, very prepared coach, and did a phenomenal job. Obviously, that change was done at just the right time. It was almost getting to the point where you thought it might be getting almost too late, but they turned it around quickly, and they were so good after the change that not only did they get into the playoffs, but like I said, they got into the top 3 in the Pacific Division. They didn't have really home ice in the playoffs, but they did, play strong enough here that at the end of the day, They really turned things around. This was a night and day approach from the first of the season to how things ended. Goals for were the 4th best in the league, 292. That's phenomenal. Goals against was really good, 236, top 10. Power play was 4th best as well, 26.3%. And the PK was 79.5 in the regular season, which is around league average, but in the playoffs it was record-setting good. I think they rarely allowed a power play goal in the playoffs. Way up in the high 90s there. So obviously this team defensively, of course, has its challenges at times, but as the playoffs went on, they really learned how to lock it down. They really learned how to play a much stronger team defense, and it showed for sure. Individually, looking at some top performers, McDavid had an amazing season again, 100 assists, which is something he hadn't done before, 132 points total, just absolutely phenomenal. Won the Conn Smythe Trophy for playoff MVP in the losing effort. Leon Draisaitl, again, another phenomenal year, 106 points for Leon. Both those guys were battling injuries in the playoffs. McDavid had some sort of an abdominal injury that sounds like it might require surgery. Draisaitl was reportedly playing banged up as well. Had, I think, a broken finger and broken rib. Everybody's banged up by that time of year, but certainly explains why Draisaitl wasn't himself later in the playoffs, because you could tell he was dealing with something, but it wasn't clear what it was. Bouchard had an amazing season and broke some records himself in the playoffs, 82 points in the regular season. Hyman had an amazing year, 54 goals, 77 points. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 67 points as well, continues to be solid at both ends of the ice and productive and consistent for the Oilers as well. After a back-and-forth season, beginning of the year where Skinner and Campbell were kind of sharing the net, Skinner eventually took over that job, ran with a 36-16-5 record, a 2.62 goals against, and a 905 save percentage. Might not blow you out of the water, might not be phenomenal, but it was good enough most nights, and the Oilers proved that you can go far with, a little bit above 900 save percentage. Nowadays, scoring has gone up the last few years. Goalie save percentages have come down a bit. And looking at what you've seen in the playoffs, especially in the regular season, there's some teams that can get by. When you're looking at 905 to 910, that's actually pretty decent. There was a time when that was kind of considered so-so, but it's better than what it used to be. As far as in-season changes. We already talked about the coaching change, the change between Woodcroft and Knobloch, which was a phenomenal. Of course, Knobloch was the junior coach for Connor McDavid, so an existing relationship there, and somebody who's just, like I said, very calm, cool, collected, calculated, has bought his time, paid his dues in different levels, and has got his opportunity here. So to me, he looks like he's a phenomenal coach. I love the fact that he's like just the calm demeanor. He doesn't get worked up. He's not an emotional coach, and the team certainly feeds off that vibe, I think. At the deadline, they added Adam Henrique, Troy Stetcher. Stetcher ended up with an ankle injury, needed surgery, so he was done early. But Henrique was a nice pickup, really was a huge part of their penalty kill in that third line with Connor Brown and Matthias Janmark. And of course, like the big early change was putting Jack Campbell on waivers and sending him to the minors, giving Skinner a chance to take over and bringing up Calvin Pickard, who actually, for a guy who's in his early 30s, been a bit of a journeyman, so to speak. Hasn't been a regular NHL goalie in some time. He filled in nicely when called upon, and he even got a few playoff games when Skinner struggled early on and got the job done. I don't know what the future holds for Pickard, but I would think after the performance that we saw from him, that it wouldn't be shocking if he gets another contract to remain in the Oilers organization. Looking at their cap situation, they have $10 million in space, which is not a lot, and they have 14 out of 23 roster spots already signed and spoken for next year. Looking at their expiring contracts, on the RFA side, we've got Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg, and Raphael Lavoie. Definitely would expect Broberg and Holloway to get signed. Broberg proved in the playoffs once he get in there after taking over for Desharnais that he can play, and he's a player. I think Edmonton at one point earlier this year was rumored to maybe be trading him, and they didn't. And I think that's probably sometimes the best moves you make are the ones you don't make, and I think that's one of those cases. I think they're probably happy they didn't move him because he proved that he can play. For him to be a regular in the lineup next year, especially as a third pair guy, I don't see any reason why that can't be the case. I do wonder about Raphael Lavoie. I kind of wonder if it might be time for him to move on and find a fresh start. So we'll see about that. But Holloway definitely going to get signed as well. I would expect Broberg and Holloway to probably get short bridge deals, anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 years at most. On the unrestricted free agent side, we've got Connor Brown and Matthias Janmark and Adam Henrique. That entire third line that was so good for them later into the playoffs in all crucial parts of the penalty kill. Be curious to see what the future holds there. You got Warren Foegele, Sam Carrick, Sam Gagner, Corey Perry, who they picked up later into the year as well as his unrestricted free agent, Calvin Pickard, Vinny Desharnais, and Troy Stetcher. Fair to say that some of these guys, like Carrick, I don't think he'll be back. Gagner probably won't be back. Stetcher won't be back. I think they would like to have Henrique back, but I don't know how they make the money work. Unfortunately, I think Henrique probably departs just because of the cap. I don't know what his desire is, what he wants to do at this point. He comes over to Edmonton after a long run with the Ducks in Anaheim. So I don't know. Fogel's been there obviously for some time as well. I wonder if it might be time for him to move on. I think they probably want to keep Brown and Janmark after their performance as the shorthanded specialist there in the playoffs. They were really, really good, and they can probably, because their regular seasons weren't great. So if they do sign Janmark and Brown, I think they can probably get them on fairly cheap contracts. I don't know that they've earned any kind of long-term security or bigger money. They did in the playoffs, and that's the thing. I guess when free agency rolls around here next week, is the team going to want to overpay to get them? That's going to boil down to what opportunities they have. But they both made up for their regular seasons in the playoffs, and I guess we'll see what the Oilers, how they move forward there. But Brown and Janmark, I wonder. I suspect there's desire to keep them, but we'll see. Otherwise, you're looking at Vinny Desharnais is an interesting case as well. Big guy, right shot defenseman, good on the third pair. There's going to be teams probably interested in him, largely because of his size and strength, and he's a right shot. So I don't know. I would suspect the Oilers will be interested in keeping him. I don't know what the opportunities are going to be. So we'll see on that. So I think some of the UFAs are definitely going to walk for sure. Perry's probably not back either. So I say Perry, Carrick, Gagner, Henrique, Stetcher are all gone for sure. I think Pickard is a maybe. I don't know what his situation is going to be. Same with Foegele or Desharnais. I would suspect Brown and Janmark would probably get the most attention from the Oilers brass to see if they can keep them, but we'll see. At the draft, they have 6 picks right now, but no first-round pick, no third-round pick, and no fourth-round pick. They have 2 picks in round 6 and 7 each, which really is pretty late and not all that great. So I don't know if we'll see any moves for them to get into the earlier part of the draft or not. I don't know what they would move to make that happen, so I'm going to say probably not. The biggest questions facing this team, there's lots of them, and in no particular order, is can they keep that third line together? Can they keep Henrique, Brown, and Janmark? I'm going to say probably not. They might at best be able to keep 2/3 of it, but I do wonder, with that penalty kill in the playoffs, they're going to want to try to keep that up next year. So I do wonder what they might do to make some more space to see if that's more reasonable to do. For example, Jack Campbell definitely doesn't have a future with the Oilers. Are they going to buy him out? Is there any way they can trade him? I doubt it. Not making $5 million. So I would suspect that a Jack Campbell buyout is probably pretty likely. That'll help. As far as other cap casualties, would they look to move a guy like Evander Kane? Kane had a real good start to his time with the Oilers, but then it's kind of, and I know he was playing injured this year, so I don't want to, put too much on there to say that his game has fallen off, because it has, but injury could have played a big part in it too. So I'm not sure, but I wonder about the long-term viability of Kane now. He does have a no-move clause, so it complicates things too, and I'm not sure what his feelings are for returning or getting moved somewhere, or what team would want him and all that. It's hard to say. I look to a guy like Cody Ceci, who I know takes a lot of flack, and really for the most part, a lot of it's not justified, but some of it is for sure. But he's got 1 year left at 3.25, doesn't have any trade protection. Right shot defensemen are at a premium. I wonder if they would maybe move Ceci, and if they move Ceci, that might be an opportunity for them to have a better chance to keep Desharnais if they want to. So, and at the same time, give more money to maybe bring back more of the depth, because clearly the depth has been an issue over the years in Edmonton. It was not this year. It was the best depth they've had, which was a large part of why they were able to make this playoff run as deep and successful as it was. So they're going to want to try to keep as much of that as they can. The big problem, which unfortunately I don't think they can really do anything with, but that Darnell Nurse contract is an absolute albatross. I'm not going to sit here and crap on Nurse too much, because at the end of the day, the Oilers offered him the contract. He just accepted it. But that's a gross overpayment. And they have no way. It's not really a kind of deal that you can get bought out from, because the way it's structured, buying it out is not really beneficial. You can't trade it because it's ridiculously overpaid. I mean, you would think, we've seen some crazy contracts, get traded, even though you thought they were not tradable. So I guess we maybe shouldn't say impossible, but who's going to take it? And what are you going to have to give them on top of that as incentive to do it? It's hard to say, right? So, if they could find a way to move on from Nurse, would be phenomenal. I just don't know that they can, because there is some short-term savings with Nurse. In the first couple of years, there is some really good cap savings, but in years 3 to 6, because there's 6 years left on it, it's really expensive. And then you add extra time on top of that. So, they'd have to retain money now that's the only other possibility. They get out of the contract as an entirety, not happening. But could they retain, maybe $3 million? Would somebody take him around $6 million? I don't know. But I would suspect that they're going to have to explore that. And I know he's got trade protection in his contract too. Is he tired of all the crap he takes in Edmonton, or would he want to move? I don't know. But, that contract is a major issue. Of course, they get some big, extensions looming here for Bouchard and Draisaitl. Expectations are that they will get both of these guys extended. You're probably looking at, I'm not sure what Bouchard is going to get. I'm going to say around 10. He's proven to be one of the top offensive guys from the back end in the entire league. I mean, he'll be contending for Norris trophies, I suspect. His defensive game could get a little bit better, but he's real solid. He's gotten better since he started for sure, but there's still room to grow defensively. But offensively, he's amazing. And Leon is expected to be looking at somewhere you probably, I mean, he's a consistent 100-point performer. Like his number is definitely going to go up. That contract he signed, a lot of people thought it was an overpayment and terrible. Now it's one of the best bargains in the NHL, and he's definitely going to be up around at least, I don't know, 12, 13. Maybe could he ask for 14 even? Like, I don't even know. I mean, if you think about his numbers compared to like Matthews, it's not that drastically different. And they're both centers. Like, I don't know. Hard to say. Like, he's going to get a big number. So big numbers for Leon and Bouchard. They wouldn't kick in until next year. We'd have another cap increase then to offset some of that too. So they got to take care of those extensions. That would be preferable to get those done. Yeah, I wonder about Ken Holland. Is he retiring? When they brought in Jeff Jackson as CEO, you kind of expected a different structure of management there. So I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll have to see if there's any directional impact because of that. I would think probably not much. I honestly think Jackson's probably been kind of sort of running the show anyway since his arrival, but we'll have to see. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, by obviously buying out Campbell and maybe moving off a guy like CC or Kane, if they can, might eliminate a contract which will reduce the hit, which gives them more space to work with. So they've only got $10 million now. Maybe they can bump that up to 13, 14, and then that allows them to maybe keep a little bit more of their depth, and then on short-term deals, of course, and then work on these big extensions as well. But I fully suspect the Oilers can be back. You look at all the teams that have made it to the final and lost before they won. Panthers are a prime example of that, so I think it can happen, so I honestly think this team is built to contend for the foreseeable future. They're going to have a big window, but there's other teams in the West they're going to have to contend with. It's not a given they get back year after year to the Stanley Cup final. I could see them doing it next 3-4 years, them being right in the mix every year for sure. But at the same time, Vegas is pretty good. Dallas is pretty good. Colorado is pretty good. The Jets were really good this year. They bowed out early, but what do they do? There's some really good teams. Vancouver surprised. They're back in the mix. It's a tough conference for sure. But it's been a fun run watching this team come a long ways. Their first trip to the final with this core group. And like I said, they got more to come. There's no doubt. But they got work to do. We'll see. Hopefully we'll get more clarity on the injuries that their top guys have been dealing with and see how that'll affect their offseason training and all that. And we'll go from there. But the Oilers will be interesting to see what they do here in the coming days now that their season's done and they can get to work on the heavy lifting of the offseason. So let me know your thoughts and expectations for the Oilers for the offseason down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.